when it comes to audience and stuff, in my opinion, I think it's better to have the right audience than a big audience. Having a really big audience can be nice and that can happen, but it doesn't always necessarily mean it's the right one that's going to actually benefit you as an artist.
Welcome back to the Creative Endeavor Podcast. This is the podcast bringing you inspiring stories from creative professionals from around the world. It's real conversations with real artists. And I'm Andrew Tischler, and it's such a pleasure to have your company here in the studio once again. Thank you for joining me. In this podcast, I'm talking to Andrew Kneeland, who's a young artist based in Rock Springs in the United States. It's a quiet little town, but Andrew's carved out quite a niche for himself there, where he makes a living as a full-time artist painting the landscapes and wildlife of the United States, and he does it exceptionally well. Now, Andrew first came onto my radar when he started following us on Tisch Academy. He's been an active member of the Academy for some time, and I started following him on Instagram, and I was looking at all this fabulous work that he was uploading. And I had a look at his subscriber count. He had a really decent following of about 2,000 people. Within a very short period of time, that skyrocketed to 80,000. And then just a couple of weeks later, he cracked 100,000 followers on Instagram. Now, I'm a big believer that success leaves clues. If you want to get what they got, you got to do what they did. I was dying to know, how did Andrew do this? Well, it came down to a really effective, simple strategy, but a lot of hard work too, and a lot of commitment. But that was to produce some beautiful quality video reels, post them consistently, and make them not only beautiful, but exceptionally helpful. And this caused his following to skyrocket. Now he's sitting on a whole bunch of followers, and he's just now searching out those options for how to best meet the needs of this new following. And went in all kinds of cool directions. We talked a lot from the art business to the art creation side of things. I'm sure you're going to get a lot out of this conversation, as I did, and I really hope you enjoy. But before we get into it, just a huge thank you and shout out to this podcast sponsor, Rosemary & Co. Brushes. Now, Rosemary & Co. have been making the finest quality artist brushes for over 40 years. It's all I use here in the studio for my oil paintings. I just love the Tisch Dagger. Maybe I'm a little bit biased, but this specialty brush is something that we've developed. I've been working in conjunction with Rosemary & Co. a few years back to design this special brush. It's great for all kinds of techniques, from laying down broad strokes to making relatively precise lines when you're oil painting, or even wiggle the end of that handle to create some really random marks and some really cool textured effects. Not only do I use that dagger a whole bunch, but a whole range of bristle filberts and flats. But they don't only do bristle oil painting brushes, they also do a whole range of synthetics, as well as acrylic brushes and watercolor brushes. If you can think of a brush, I'm pretty sure they'll make it, and they'll make the best one that's out there. So, all you have to do is check out that link in the description down below if you want to get your hands on some of the finest quality art brushes in the world, or visit rosemaryandco.com. And once again, a huge thank you to Rosemary & Co. for sponsoring this episode of The Creative Endeavor. And just a little reminder, right now you're listening to the audio version of the podcast. You can find the full video version on Tisch Academy. Simply visit tisch.academy or click that link in the description that accompanies this episode. All right, I'm going to get out of here and let Andrew Kneeland take over. Here he is. This is Andrew Kneeland in The Creative Endeavor. Andrew Kneeland, welcome to the Creative Endeavor Podcast. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm stoked to be here.
Awesome. Well, look, we've got a lot of ground to cover in this podcast. I want to start off like I start off so many of these episodes. Tell us about yourself. Share with us your creative journey and what's gotten you up to this point.
Oh man, it's a wild ride, man. We could start way back.
Let's do it.
I've been creating art for as long as I can remember. I don't remember a time in my life when I wasn't drawing, at least. Um, Even back home, I've got a little notepad that my mom handed me in the back seat of a road trip when I was 3 years old. And I just started scribbling away, and I'd flip another page and just scribble and flip another page. And it's trash, but it's the beginning. Um, and that to me is kind of a symbol of where things started. It's just like I can't help it. Um, and so I started drawing and sketching as a teen. It was something, like um, with my friend group and stuff. It'd be kind of like my way to impress people. As I'm like, yeah, check out what I can draw and stuff. And I would get into super into cartoons, into the kind of comic book style of stuff. I had all kinds of stuff I was working on. But then um, I guess a big point in the story is that I was homeschooled throughout my whole growing up, and so um, I had a lot of opportunities that I think were really special for me. One of them being when I was about 13 years old, I had an older lady in our church. She felt really bad for me being homeschooled, and she knew I loved art, and she was like, "Kid, you've got some, you know, real drive to do this, but you poor soul don't have a real art class." And I'm like, I didn't feel that bad, but she did, and she said,
Mhm.
"Hey, I'm gonna take you with me." Oh, she asked permission, I guess, but I felt like I was being taken to this painting class at the senior center, where like all these octogenarians are getting together and having this paint class, and
Oh,
I'm 13, and I'm like, dude, I'm so out of my comfort zone. This is so awkward. So I I say okay, and I'm doing it. So I go there and I meet the art teacher, and this is basically the first painting. Like I've dabbled in some random paints before, but this is basically the first time I've ever painted anything before. And I fell in love with it in a way that I can't even describe. Like it something clicked where it was this
wow.
transition from everything being about edges and lines of division and being more about zones and shapes. Um,
Yeah.
and I was just like, oh, oh man, this is a whole other world. So I was 13 at the time, I fell in love with it, and I continued to go to that painting class and get privately tutored all the way through high school. The
Wow.
teacher there was her name is Bonnie Christensen. I got to shout her out. She's my hero. And she was a self-taught artist. And I got special permission from the senior center to attend there every single Monday all the way through high school. And like since I was homeschooled, I got to have my mom was like, you know what, dude, Mondays are off. You got to go do your art thing, and you got to catch up on your schoolwork when you get back. But um,
Mhm.
it was the it was an open door for me
Mhm.
like I can't even describe, to be able to really devote a lot of time to learning and spending time where I really connected with all these people, people that were nothing like me, people that just I was like their little chubby grandson. They wanted to pinch my cheeks all the time, and it was so much fun though, and I really got to connect with that age group. And yeah, so that's a key moment in my story, is that's how I really learned how to paint.
Mm.
I'd say about 75% of everything I know came from those foundational things that I learned there.
Amazing.
Um,
Well, can I
yeah,
just ask you,
yeah.
what do you remember some of the paintings that you were working on at that time?
Oh, at that time, I was doing all kinds of stuff. I I started off with a lot of landscapes, and I loved wildlife. That was
Mm.
really the main thing. Is I live in Rock Springs, Wyoming, a little town, and right off of Interstate 80, and it's got some incredible wildlife all around our area. I love elk and deer and bison and moose and all the big game.
Mm.
Um, and so whenever I'd start a new painting, I'd always typically pick another animal, wildlife. I grew up drawing horses incessantly. I
Mm.
I was I still love horses. Like I could go for years just painting horses. I love them. Um, so yeah, that's mostly what I was painting.
Amazing. Yeah. Fantastic. So these lessons that you were learning from Bonnie, I mean, that was very much laying the foundation, the groundwork for you. That
Hmm.
so it's great to see that that this theme has carried on to this day. Just having a look at your website now, I mean, it's really sensational work. Some really ambitious
Hmm.
compositions here, but man, you pull it off. It's
Oh,
phenomenal. So at this point in time, Andrew, is this your full-time gig?
it is. It is actually. I've been doing this full time for about 3 years. Um, I got out of
Amazing.
college. I actually in college I got a bachelor's degree in business administration. Never studied art. Just kind of felt like I would learn what I needed to learn on my own, and what I really wanted to learn from college was just more practical stuff or things that would be a kind of a fallback if the art thing didn't work out for me. Yeah,
Plan B. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So,
Well, I'm glad you haven't, executed on plan B because you don't need to. Clearly, that's awesome. But I feel sorry, I did cut you off before, and I feel like there was a lot more to that story of how this got going. So you were 13 at the Senior Citizens Club, and you were creating these works and very much studying your craft. And take us into some of those more formative years, just
mhm.
before you go into pro. Like what was that like for you, and what were you doing during that time?
Yeah, I think another key moment for me was in it would have been junior year of high school. I decided to enter a competition. It was I had done other competitions in the past,
Hmm.
state fair stuff, and typically done okay, pretty well. And so I was kind of in the competition realm, and I decided to enter for something called the National Junior Duck Stamp Competition, which, for those of you who don't know, there is a stamp that is collected. Well, there's a stamp that is produced every year for waterfowl hunters in North America. And so, in order to hunt, you buy this stamp. It has a special piece of artwork on it for that year, and it raises money to preserve and conserve wetlands for like the habitats of the ducks and geese and all that. So they have the junior version of that, which is for high school and below, which is kind of run side by side with the federal duck stamp competition.
Hmm.
So junior year of high school, I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go for this. I'm gonna see what I do. And I did this painting of a trumpeter swan and two little cygnets.
Hmm.
And I don't even know if I have that on my website, to be honest with you. It's if you Google Junior Duck Stamp from it would have been I think 2014 or 15, you'll see it online. But um, that year I won the state competition. I went all the way to the top, and then the state winners go on to the national contest. So there's like 50 some entries into the national contest because I think they do um, other regions as well. But anyways,
Hmm.
they I the first year I enter, I got second place nationally, and I thought
Awesome.
this is wild. I did not expect that. And so the following year, my senior year, I'm like I'm so doing this again. So I did a painting of a male and a female wood duck, and turned that in. I once again won state, and then I won the national competition. I got best of show, first place in that. And so, yep, that's the one right there. And so
Beautiful.
I
Beautiful.
that was a huge deal for me because
Hmm.
kind of the next year of my life was being involved with them. They would fly me to different locations to give speeches and be a part of signing ceremonies. The federal duck stamp program is like it's the only like federally juried art contest in America that's put on by the government. And
Wow.
so I was very honored to win that, and felt like that was a huge door that God opened up for me to be able to say like, hey, like you've got a shot at this. And so that was really formative for me in that season.
It's so cool to have those milestones because it gives you that reinforcement, doesn't it? And especially as a you know as a youngster, having something that you can just go, wow, okay, there's some profound feedback, very positive feedback from the
Hmm.
from the outside world. It reinforces that. I,
Hmm.
I don't know about you, but I don't think I don't think there's enough of that in this day and age. And here in New Zealand, the arts, painting, drawing, this is something that's kind of pushed to the side. It's on the fringes
Hmm.
of childhood now. There are other focuses. And it's just so sad, and it's
Hmm.
not something that's celebrated more. I see that very clearly in this country, but I mean, when we see there's also the opposite happening where there's so many examples of so many amazing artists around the world who are making this happen that I hope younger people, and if there are any tuning in to this episode, that gives them a little bit of hope that it is possible. You can
Hmm.
absolutely do this. But I don't know about you, man, but I love this idea of the duck stamp thing. I'd love to see more opportunities for younger people out there. You know,
Absolutely.
it'd be
Yeah, actually, it was, I think, 2 years ago. I put on my own workshop to host a bunch of kids,
oh
to be able
cool.
to kind of coach them through that process. I think I had like maybe 20, 25 kids that I got signed up, just local boys and girls to come into the studio, and I just kind of they came in week after week, and I just kind of helped them on their paintings. For competition pieces, like the teacher's not allowed to touch it, obviously, but I
Right.
can, facilitate, encourage, because these competitions, man, they like the judges are counting the feathers on these things. Like for the
Oh,
duck stamp, like they have to have the right number of primaries and secondaries and tertiaries and tail feathers and everything.
yeah.
Like anatomical accuracy is critical. And so
Right.
for me, being like a wildlife artist, it was so up my alley. Like I was just, I loved the idea that, man, they're gonna be looking at every little detail, and I'm gonna get like these little iridescent feathers just right, and I'm gonna, I'm counting the feathers too. So the junior duck stamp was really helpful for me, not just because it was, encouraging me to keep going, and that, like, yeah, you could do this. Like, people are noticing your work, like it stands out. But it was also, I think, pretty foundational for me in kind of discovering some core principles in the visual arts, technique, and all
Mhm.
that really helped me, moving forward, and things that I even think about today. Because for stamp contests, you are creating a typically an 7 by 10 or a 9 by 12 painting,
Mhm.
pretty small, that is going to then be reduced to like a 1.5 inch stamp,
Oh
and
yeah.
you need to be able to like see all the stuff that's going on in that little stamp. And so, from a young age, I was really thinking about contrast and noticing what's in my background versus what's in my foreground, and paying attention to more technical things like that, because I would stand super super far away from my painting to make sure everything's registering, and remaining visible,
Mhm.
because it's critical that when it shrinks down, like the back of, like, the shadow of the duck's head isn't the close to the same value as the dark background behind him, because then it just disappears, when it
Right.
shrinks. So things like that really, I don't know, they still play a huge role in my work now, which is, and it's cool to see that common thread play through and things that I was accidentally learning, that
Mm.
I still use today.
That's awesome. So then fast forwarding a little bit, at what point, when did you first realize that, hey, I want to do this for my job. I want to go full time, and then you were able to realize that. Take us to that moment.
Oh man, it's wild because, doing it full time has always in my mind been kind of an experiment. Like, and it's like, wow, the experiment's all it's still working. Um, and so, um, I went to college and studied business. Wasn't
Mm,
really into learning. I didn't like the work that was coming out of colleges.
mm,
I didn't want to become like that, and I felt like everything I could learn, I could learn on my own. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna study business administration and go from there. So,
mm, mhm,
um, graduated with my bachelor's degree in December of 2020. And throughout my college years and late high school years, I had also been just kind of approaching some art galleries. I'm about 3 hours south of Jackson Hole, which is like
mhm.
the holy grail of some of these art galleries in the States.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and and needless to say, at a young age, I was I was shut down a lot. And I eventually kind of got to the point where I was like, you know what, dude, I'm not getting anywhere with getting my work into art galleries, and I'd love to make this a full-time gig. So I just, after, December 2020, I graduated and I thought, I'm just going to open up my own gallery. I'm just going to do this for myself. So, um, spent the next 3 or 4 months looking for a place, and I found a nice location on the corner of Broadway Street here in my downtown in my hometown in Rock Springs, Wyoming. And Rock Springs isn't really like, I don't know. We're really working on our art scene here. But it's not Jackson Hole. Let's just say that. Um, and it was like, you know what? I think this could work. I'm in an old office building. It used to be like a law office, and it's got all these little tiny rooms. And I was like, you know what? This got a lot of wall space. I could work with this. So really felt like the door opened up there, and I moved in April of 2021. Opened up July of 2021. And at the time, I was doing actually not only my paintings, I was also creating pottery. I do a lot of like wheel thrown pottery. And so I had a
Awesome.
bunch of that in here. I had prints in here, drawings. I had some family members that were selling like handmade jewelry. And I just kind of made it this like kind of multifaceted art shop. And
Mhm,
then I pretty quickly got into using this space to also teach classes.
mhm.
Um, and so kind of the sale of original paintings became kind of this nice bonus. Whenever I'd sell a painting, it's a good day. But most of the time, I'm especially throughout the school year, I'm in here teaching classes. I can have 30 to 40 kids throughout a month, kind of spaced out day to day. Um, I typically teach ages 7 to 12, which is a
Awesome.
rowdy bunch, but I love them. And yeah, that's really been what has honestly kept me afloat through these
Wow.
past 3 years, is teaching classes and just getting to invest in young people, kind of the way that I was invested in at a
Yeah.
young age. Um, and so that's been kind of my bread and butter for the past 3 years. And then, art sales and commission paintings
Mhm.
um, have been this thing that's kind of slowly been boiling and building in the background.
That's awesome. So many things I want to ask you about here. So tell me about this space that you've set up. What was the process like of moving into this vacant
Mm.
space? And then like and also I'd love to ask you what do you think it takes to make a great gallery? And were you inspired by some of these places that you were looking at in Jackson? I want to hear about it all. That sounds
Oh
so
yeah.
cool.
Oh yeah. It was so fun, man. This building has been around for, I don't know what year it was built. It's easily been around 100 years.
Mhm, mhm.
Just a little tiny flat roof building. It's got, I think, 6 rooms in it, and a dingy basement. And when I say rooms, it's like a 10 by 10 room. Like it's kind of small spaces. But yeah, it's in Rock Springs, Wyoming. It's 203 D Street if anybody wants to come
203
visit
D
me.
Street.
Yeah.
I'm just going to let people know that are listening to the podcast and not watching the video version, which you can find exclusively on Tish Academy. I'm just pulling up some images right now of Rock Springs, and I'm hoping that Andrew's going to recognize this building. Uh,
Oh yeah. It's dude, that big white one right there. I'm right across the street from that.
okay, so opposite side of the road from that one.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
very, very cool. That's what a beautiful spot, man.
Oh, it's so fun. And I got in here, and it was wild because it used to be a right before I was in here was a law office, and
Mhm.
then before that it was everything from like an aromatherapy spa, a dental office, a dog groomers.
Yeah,
This thing is just art gallery was like the next thing on the list for it. It was just
brilliant.
like it's always been evolving. So yeah, it took some work. It took probably 2 or 3 months of me repainting the walls, installing good lighting. That was a big investment.
Mm,
Um, and I think that's something that there's a lot of things you don't think about until you have to actually start doing it. Like you hang a
oh yeah.
painting up and you're like, why does that look like trash? And then you're like, oh yeah, because
True.
there's no windows in here and there's no lighting and yeah. So a lot of investing in simple things like that. It took a while to get that. And I'll be honest with you, I have like a lot of support,
Mhm.
which has helped me a lot. I got a church family who has been incredible in supporting me, and I mean by like helping me out. Like I know electricians and mechanics and people that have just helped me out in incredible ways, and my parents too. And
Mhm.
not only in the way that they've you know given me the opportunity to learn the skills I have, but um, the fact is like I still live with them, and I
Mhm.
have four younger brothers, and we have like this big house out in the country. It's the life, man. I tell you what. And we have like a little homestead out there. Um,
Nice.
it's so fun. So there's like support and like they're like, dude, we don't plan on you living with us forever, but like this like building a business takes time,
It
and
does.
it's something that I can't say, oh, I just went out there on my own and pulled myself up by my own bootstraps and made this thing happen. Um, I, I'm still dependent on the support of people who love me and want to help me kind of
Mhm.
achieve the things that I feel like I'm made to do.
That's what families should be doing, I feel.
Yeah.
We raise these young ones and then, to prepare them and set them off into the world. And I just feel like, yeah, it's wonderful to see when there is support and it works. And because
Hmm.
in a way, they're right now witnessing the return on the investment that they've made in you. And
Hmm.
that's so cool to see. And
Yeah.
nice to be part of a church family like that. That sounds pretty cool, man.
I love it. I love it, man. I'm a pastor's kid. I grew up in the church. A whole other thing. I do lots of music. I play loads of instruments, and um, for me, visual art and musical art are like parallel universes. They feel
Yeah.
like so related. So I've done a lot of music in the church. Just grew up in that world, and I love it, man.
That's awesome, dude. Awesome. So Rock Springs. Okay, so forgive me. I mean, I've heard of Wyoming. I've been through there. I'm not too familiar with my American geography, which is a real shame because I am Texan.
Mm.
I haven't been born there.
Oh,
I left when I was 6, but yeah,
still.
not been back, not been back. But I except for once back in 2009, but it was such a brief little trip
Mm,
around the place. But Rock Springs. So is this what did Rock Springs start out as? Because
mm,
this is something that I find really interesting with small towns here. Right now, just to give you a snapshot of where Lawrence is at, I've just now moved back to this little sleepy town in the bottom of the South Island of New Zealand. But this is where I think opportunities lie. And that is in nodes or points, links on this chain almost. So where people are going from point A to point B, there's some sort of industry here that generally draws people to the general area. And they're going to be on this highway and they're going to go through the town. And so there's this nexus point. There's this perfect opportunity of cheap real estate and a business opportunity or
mm,
the potential through traffic. And so what we
mm,
have here is it's like a major artery between Dunedin and Queenstown, two huge points in the South Island of New Zealand. So if you're doing a road trip and you're a tourist and you're traveling from overseas, you're going to go through Lawrence at some point. You're just not going to stop here. You're going to keep
yeah.
driving. So my thinking was, okay, well, let's create a net to try and catch some of this flow that's coming through the town. Just to go, oh, hang on a second, just pull over. I'm gonna go and pop in there. So
Yeah.
this is my theory. I think that there are some golden opportunities still around. Maybe Rock Springs is one of these things because it's like Jackson Hole. For me, it's like looking at Queenstown. It's cooked. It's already done.
Mhm.
They are already playing the game. The gallery's already there. The artist's already established. And if you want to rent your own space, you're looking at $250,000 rent per year.
Yep. Yep.
So I'm like, well, okay, well that's cooked. I don't need to play that game. I can work on this tiny little pond and just become one of the bigger minnows in this little pond. But
Yeah.
I'm just still amazed. It is so possible to do, despite the because maybe people won't find themselves in the same position that you've been in, Andrew. But with the support that they could get for, because a lot of people out there are very much going it alone, or they're at a transition point where they've had their career, they want to go
Mhm.
into something. But I just want to say, and just throw this into the mix, that there are some amazing opportunities. And Rock Springs, man. Okay, so what was the industry? What did Rock Springs start
Mm.
off as, and what is it today?
Yeah, it's always been kind of a boom and bust town. A little bit of an old west mining kind of location. We've got lots of history in coal and oil, Trona, all that kind of
Right.
stuff. And Trona's still going. There are some regulation things that have really,
What's
killed some
Trona?
of the. Trona
Okay.
is it's a mineral, sodium bicarbonate, I think.
Oh, okay. Right.
Basically, it's pretty much baking soda,
Hmm.
um, and so it's used in loads of processes and products throughout the world. And so
Hmm.
there's actually a lot of it to be mined here, and it's still going. And so it's always been a town that's kind of got its waves. We'll have tons of people flocking here when the work is high, and when there's deregulation and industries are open up, and lots of oil companies, coal companies are moving in and
Hmm.
striking it here, and so we'll have a huge boom in population, and this is over the course of the past like 100 years, and
Hmm.
then it will just completely crash and everyone moves away.
Hmm.
And so it's been a roller coaster. And I think it's one of those locations that it's always had some volatility to it. And
Hmm.
so um, for me, I've been here. I moved here when I was 8 years old with my family. My mom grew up in this town. And so I was born in Kansas, moved to Virginia when I was a kid. And then when I was 8, we moved back to Rock Springs, Wyoming. And um, I think actually being here this long, I get to know the people who have also been here for the long haul as well.
Hmm.
You kind of start making connections with, like, oh, I know that name. They've been here for a while because through all those ups and downs, there's always there's a steady,
Hmm.
population base they've been here for 50 years. Um,
Brilliant. Yeah.
my grandparents are some of those people. They live here in town, and
Hmm.
so um, yeah, and I think also for a place like this, like what you said, one of the key things is the fact that we are right on Interstate 80, which is spanning pretty much coast to coast,
Hmm.
and so that is how a lot of people in the states know Rock Springs is it's a truck stop, um, which is unfortunate because we have way more than that to offer. Yeah, especially if you get out of the kind of out of the deserty location where they always put the highway in the worst possible location, like where none of the
Hmm.
pretty stuff is.
Hmm.
Um, so most people think that's Rock Springs is what they see from the highway, and I'm like, dude, you got to get out of town. You got to take the dirt roads. Um, and because I mean, where I live is maybe 20-25 minutes from the highway,
Hmm.
and I mean I can scope out black bears from my house. There's moose and deer and elk and everything you can imagine right there, and pine forests, aspen forests, mountains. It's gorgeous.
Hmm.
Like loads of just unbelievable amounts of inspiration to be had. Um, and so it is kind of fun to be kind of that person who's in this downtown spot who I'm not only I not only feel like I'm trying to represent myself and get myself out there, but I kind of love the aspect where I feel like I'm representing my home state, my hometown, where
Hmm.
travelers come through. I'm not only pointing them to my artwork, but I'm trying to point them to, like, hey, you got to go down this road, go find this spot, go to this peak, like
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
see wild horses over here,
Yeah.
and getting to be kind of that one of those people who's in the net trying to catch some of these people passing through.
Amazing. So you live right next to one of my favorite Thomas Moran paintings, which is Green River.
Yeah, yeah.
Dude, like, and he painted that a couple of times, and some of these they look like Turner, landscapes, like just the
Hmm.
color and the drama in these
Yeah.
places. So wow. So and I've noticed that there's a painting of Green River right here on your website. It's stunning, stunning, by the
Oh
way.
yeah.
Absolutely
Yeah.
beautiful.
I love that location.
Ah,
Obviously Moran did too.
it's yeah, so you're obviously you're drawing so much inspiration from the from the local environment. So who would you find like have you run a survey, or do you kind of get a sense of who's buying your work from locals versus people passing through? What's that split
Mm.
look like?
It's it's a I don't know, man. I'll be honest with you. I've got a really strong customer base,
Mhm,
um, especially when it comes to classes, especially when it comes to
mhm,
teaching, especially kids.
mhm, mhm.
Like all I got to do is send out a couple text messages, like a group chat, group text, and I'm like, I could get 35 kids like ready to go. Like, and
Brilliant.
that's that's awesome. And so
Yeah.
for the painting side of things, it's a little bit more up in the air. I've got some people
Hmm.
that have they work for the government. They're stationed overseas, and they come to my shop every year to buy a painting. Um,
Nice.
and so there's people like that that just random connections.
Yeah, yeah.
And as another side note, I just think that's one of the coolest things about having my own location is
Mhm.
that I personally get to like shake hands with everyone who buys my work. I
Right
don't
on.
have someone else doing all the sales and running things, and I never know who gets what. But I actually have like a relationship built with these people, and that's precious to me. I love that.
Right on. Yeah. Just on the teaching thing for a second. Um, this is something that came up uh about a year and a half ago. There was one of our members on the academy, and I was doing a video about websites, but it kind of went off on a bit of a tangent into the art business side of things. And I was trying to encourage this chap to go into teaching, to do basically exactly what you were doing. It's exactly what I did when I was you know, trying to actually stabilize after a bit of economic upheaval. The blessing there was that I love to teach. And I wouldn't have realized unless I was forced into that situation where I had to like really not just reinvent myself, like find myself genuinely, authentically. Who am I? Um, and so teaching, I found that passion for that. And I was like, wow. So I was encouraging this chap. I'm like, dude, here's what you got to do. Just teach a weekend workshop, make your money on the Saturday, point load your income for that one day, and then in the rest of the other 5 days, take a rest day, of course, but the other 5 days that you're working, build, 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 build. Just keep chipping away at that. I don't know. I wanted to throw that in the mix, Andrew, because you're reminding me of something that is it was so vital for me to build that stability early on, and I can hear that that's exactly where you are.
Exactly.
And it's so important. I don't know why I had that idea when I was there, like I can't believe I'm teaching that. This means I failed, and I had that idea that those that can't teach. But I'm like
Yep.
that's just so dumb. Like, why am I doing that? And so, I mean, literally, like I heard a few of these concepts. One of them was from Tim Ferriss's book, the 4 Hour Work Week. And I know that title triggers a lot of people. It did at the time for me, but I also found it really intriguing. It's like, what do you mean 4 hour work week? I mean, I see the work week I do now, but the thing is that he was talking about efficiency and doing things smart, and I was looking at that, read one of these concepts in his book where he's like, you need to figure out what is your target monthly income. What are your needs? What are those bases? I'm like, okay, cool. That gave me the figure. I divided it by 10. I said, this is how much I need to charge each student coming in. Turned out it was a really competitive price. I just started booking out these workshops, man. And that covered all my bills. And I'm like, okay, I don't got to worry about money this month. Right.
Yep.
I need to paint that big painting and try and get on the map here in the art world. And so because when you're trying to make the sale, that kills your art. when you're going, oh, I hope this sells. I got to make money out of it. I can't think of anything worse than that kind of pressure. When you're
Yeah,
trying to be
yeah,
creative, it just
yeah. It,
you buckle, you
yeah,
know?
yeah. And buyers sense that too. Like that, like
Oh,
someone walks in,
100%.
they feel the pressure. And
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
so different when you have your needs met already
Yeah.
and they feel the freedom to just have a conversation. They can walk out, they can think about it, they can,
Yeah.
go check their finances, whatever.
Yeah.
And that makes the process so much smoother when you do sell a painting. Is that like I have rooms full of paintings
Mhm.
and I'm not stressing, I'm not posting them constantly trying to push them, promote them, or lower the prices to put them on sale or anything like
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Good. Yeah.
so it's been it. My experience has been so similar to what you've
Mm.
just described, which is that there is some there's stability in teaching. I've
Mhm.
found there's also a little bit of humility, a
Mhm.
little bit of taking the reality that maybe I wasn't always envisioning that I was going to be an art teacher, but here I am, and I don't know how
Yeah.
long I'll be able to even teach.
Mm.
There's like it's a gift to do that, and so take
Mm.
advantage of it, do it as best as possible, and then kind of let that be kind of the meat and potatoes of your income,
Mm.
and then you won't feel the pressure because that's the thing is paintings take hours and hours and hours. Like for me, the big painting I just finished was a year and a half project, um,
Yeah.
and I, I put so much into each one of those paintings that I kind of need just space that I don't have to finish it. I don't. It doesn't have to get done. Otherwise, I'm gonna be kicked out of my building or whatever. Um,
Mm.
what I've found is that the stability of teaching is really, really calmed down that process and made it more creative, made it more loose, made it to the point where I do my best to get the hours in. I do my best to just, it's kind of like focused on process, focused on repetition and just getting your reps in.
Mhm.
Um, but it means that there are some days when I'm like, I painted for like an hour and a half, maybe, and I feel like I'm not quite getting somewhere, and I'm gonna just sit here and do some research. I'm just gonna go Google a bunch of pictures for a couple hours and figure
Mhm.
out what I want to do for this painting
Mm.
before I just go for it and keep plunging ahead and feeling like I got to get it done, otherwise I'm not gonna make rent. Um, that that dynamic is just it's precious. It's
Yeah.
really, really good.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so important, and this is something that I talk to a lot of people about, because I'm getting emailed, I'm getting messages and stuff like, how do you do this? How can you make it work? And it's like, well, you absolutely can, but you're gonna have to be thinking quick on your feet here, and diversification is huge. And there's also this tendency I think people have, or this they're very quick to judge the situation. They'll look on their phone, they'll look online, they'll be like, wow, this marketplace is so saturated. How am I going to compete? And to that, if you find yourself in that spot where you're thinking that, I'm just going to say, well, it doesn't
Mm-hmm,
have you yet. Add
mm-hmm,
your voice to the mix. And
mm-hmm,
and as
mm-hmm,
as more of us take part in this conversation and we're authentically expressing what we have, then I think that it's gonna be better for that.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
There's room for I so firmly believe there's room for everybody.
Yeah.
Art's getting so good, man, and there are so many people taking part in this now that when I'm jumping on my phone, I'm just like, and I'm doing the scrolling thing and finding out what's being painted today and
Mm-hmm.
what drawings are happening, what's happening in sculpture. It's like, whoa, it's pretty
Yeah.
pretty gnarly.
Yeah. It's awesome. I think that um when it comes to audience and stuff, like they're in my opinion, I think it's better to have the right audience than a big audience. And
Wow.
um
Okay.
and and I think that having a really big audience can be nice and that can happen, but
Mhm.
it doesn't always necessarily mean it's the right one that's going to actually benefit you as an artist.
Okay.
And I see like for me, I I kind of had a little bit of a blow up on social media where I didn't
Yeah, you
really
did.
anticipate it. I did not anticipate that, man. That blew my brain.
Well, I really hope you're enjoying this episode of the Creative Endeavor podcast. Please excuse this brief interruption. I just want to tell you quickly about this episode's sponsor, Rosemary & Co. Now, Rosemary & Co. make unbelievable brushes. You probably heard me say that in the introduction, but really, they do. They're simply the best brushes I have ever used. And I've been using them exclusively since about 2018. And since I started using these brushes, it's really opened me up to a whole range of new techniques and applications with paint. I just didn't realize the difference that a good quality brush would make. And I'm also really shocked about how good value they are. For the money, like, they are incredible value. They're not as expensive as you might think. So check them out by visiting rosemaryandco.com. Now, not only do they make beautiful oil painting brushes, but they also make a wide range of acrylic and watercolor brushes as well. I've even heard of makeup artists that use their brushes. So check them out. Visit rosemaryandco.com, and a huge thank you to Rosemary & Co. for sponsoring this episode of The Creative Endeavor. Thanks so much for allowing this brief interruption. Let's jump right back into our conversation with Andrew Kneeland in The Creative Endeavor. Yeah, that was really cool to see. I remember because we were following each other, and because you were on the academy and you were quite an active member, posting your work and stuff. And I noticed that, and I was like, wow, you can paint. And I had to look at the profile. From memory, and I could be wrong on the number, but at the time it was something like 2,000 or 2,500 people. Then I look again, and within a very short space of time, it was like 80,000. I'm like, whoa. And then it was just a couple of weeks, if that, or it was somewhere in that neighborhood, 100,000, over 100,000. I'm like, dude, keep going. What's happening? And to your credit, I mean, I was looking at your social media game. Your social media game's on point, dude.
Mm,
Really good.
thank
So
you.
so
Thank
so
you.
what has this been like? This kind of meteoric Instagram success here.
Oh, dude, I have so many thoughts. I have so many thoughts. Um, so yeah, I went from, I think it was January of this year. I had 150 followers on Instagram,
Wow.
and I'm almost about to hit, like, I think 117,000. Um, and it just, dude, I can't completely explain it, to be honest with you. Social media is it's a bit of a game, but I feel like I'm learning some of the rules. Um, One of the things that I found really quickly is that I wasn't seeing a lot of, how do I say this, really fine, high fidelity content when it came to the art education space.
Mhm.
Most of it looked like, I mean, it's great stuff. Most of it looked like it was shot on an iPhone. Most of it looks like it's, which I started out doing, to be honest with you. I have archived some YouTube videos I made back in the day, that no one needs to ever see because they were super. I had one of my art students go and watch them. She was like a 12-year-old, and she's like, Andrew, that was cringe. I'm like, I'm like, roasted. Awesome.
That's
So
a secret, man. That's a secret. You got to get kids to watch your content. They're going to
oh,
tell you.
dude,
They'll tell you.
they'll be honest with you. They'll be so
Oh,
honest.
oh, they will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Carry on. Carry on. Sorry.
um, so I started out making stuff on, obviously, on my phone, whatever I could do. But I actually found way more success, like I did in my business space. I found way more success in teaching rather than just showing my art.
Mhm.
I think that's what I was doing for a long time, was just, I finished a painting, posted on
Mm.
Instagram, and I'm like, man, got 15 likes. Um, and it was kind of discouraging, but it was like, I just kind of put it to the side for years. And I was like, you know what, Instagram, I guess, just isn't my thing.
Mm.
Um, but I had this, I don't want to say revelation, but I had like kind of a moment where I had this idea for a video. I was like,
Mhm.
I feel like I could explain this. I feel like no one talks about this. Is just the idea of the idea of teaching yourself how to paint, and like the things you can do to to learn for yourself and experience for yourself art. Because I think so many people get caught up watching tutorials and watching things that they actually never go and do it. They just sit there and like
Right.
they just watch the stuff. So I was like, man, I want to make a video that encourages people and shows them kind of the doability of doing this for yourself, teaching yourself, because your hand actually has to be doing this thing in order for you to learn it. So you have to teach yourself. You can learn from other people. Absolutely. I'm a full proponent of that. And I teach art, but it needs to be also experienced and practiced for the learner. So I just had this boiling idea for some videos. I'm like, I'm just going to make like a little 2-part reel thing. I actually posted it first on my business Facebook page, and it actually did really good. And I'm like, I'm going to put this on Instagram too. So pop that on Instagram, and it was the most views ever for me. I don't quite know what the number for that one is at. It was way more than anything else I'd ever posted before. And I hadn't really done any reels before. I just done pictures. So this, let me check this out real quick. It's got 750 likes on it, which was just like
Awesome.
astronomical for me at that point.
Awesome.
And so I was like, I'm going to do it again. So I made another reel, and I was like, I'm just trying to do my best to explain pretty basic concepts, pretty like beginner level things. Cause I'm like, dude, the beginner level pool is massive. There's a lot of people who want to learn, who just want to get into it. And so that's a massive audience waiting. And I also, the other thing was just, like I said before, that like obsession with quality is just like getting like investing in a nice camera, investing in a nice lens, investing in a nice microphone. Like I say investing, but I don't think I've spent more than maybe $3,000 on my whole setup. But just like that, for me, for a business owner, that's a nice investment for me. And so, but doing that has like, I feel like that's such a big thing, is being able to feel proud of the quality, feel proud of what I'm putting out there, and to stand out, and to be kind of different, and to really work on editing. All my reels have like an insane amount of sound effects, and like there's a soundtrack to all of them. Like just the whole production to me has become its own art form. That I've loved diving into. I was like, I didn't know. I didn't know I'd get so excited about videography. But I love it. I really, really do. So that's kind of the thing that eventually started building up to the point where I have a couple reels now that have over 1 million views, and it's crazy too. Okay, sorry, I know I'm rambling here.
No, not at all. You're not. No, it's fascinating hearing about this trajectory here. No, please continue.
Yeah, the what I found too is that with social media, maybe just with Instagram specifically, that there has got to be like every single it factor ticked on for things to just to explode. And there's only, out of all the reels I've made, only like a couple, 2 or 3 of them, maybe 4, have really kind of ticked all the boxes and have done really, really well for me. I have one reel that has gained me like 35,000 followers, just from one reel. And there's other reels that have 20, and I feel like I put just as much work into them. So it's not necessarily about, oh, just follow all these steps and you'll make a banger every time. It's a little bit of luck. It's a little bit of chance that you're hitting all the marks, that your watch time is staying really high throughout the whole thing. And so the algorithm senses, oh, people are really paying attention to this the whole time. We're going to boost this to more people. Or there's a lot of people saving this reel. There's a lot of people sharing this. And so this is valuable content that we really would want to boost and post to, kind of show a bigger audience. And I think that's the huge deal too, is making valuable content. I guess maybe that's an umbrella thing for me, is I want to make valuable stuff. um, not just sharing things, not just showing things, but making things that people find valuable. As if a lot of people watch it and they'll comment and say something like I can't believe you're giving this information away, kind of thing. Like,
Yeah,
oh
yeah.
man, like this is the stuff it's kind of like I'm just throwing it all out there. This is valuable stuff that I actually do that I'm giving to people, and it's a
Mm,
gift. And people need to feel like they're given a gift and they're not being sold something, and they're not
right.
being manipulated or
Yeah.
like, I mean, we can tell when we're getting kind of
Oh,
swindled pretty quick.
sure.
So
Oh, sure. Yeah. Or
yeah.
being or just being sold to. Like sometimes when you're in that space where you just want to be inspired, and every
Hmm.
fifth or sixth post is another ad for, your online art print business or whatever. And I know, like, I don't get it twisted. I've bought Meta ads. I've marketed my
Oh
stuff.
yeah.
You've probably seen my ads if you're listening to this. I'm sorry. I'll make better ads,
We
but
forgive you.
it's but that said, like I just keep scrolling past those ads. The ad has got to be pretty good for me to go, hang on a second, I'm gonna
Yeah.
get that.
Hmm. Hmm. And
Mm.
I think that we're in an age now where people are trained to tune out the ads.
Yes.
Um, and so
Mm.
what actually stands out more to people is value and quality.
Right.
And
Yes.
so when people feel like there's something there that, hey, I actually want to initiate something. Because here's the thing is I've done these reels and I've got all this, but I haven't made an online course. I
Mhm.
haven't made to be honest with you, I haven't made a dime from Instagram. Like it's been total of zero point zero zero
Interest,
dollars.
interesting. But so you haven't found a flow-on effect where it's led to original sales
No,
or
this goes back.
interesting. Okay.
Listen, this
Okay.
is what I was talking about a little earlier. About it's better to have the right audience than a big audience, because
Right.
I
Okay.
have a very big audience. My
Mhm.
audience doesn't want to buy paintings. They didn't come to me to buy paintings. They came to me because they want to learn art. And so
Amazing.
for me,
Okay.
I ended up finding an audience that I didn't even know was there, and I kind of inadvertently landed on, which is this
Mhm.
huge group of people
Mhm.
who really want to learn art. They're not in the market to buy paintings. I
Mhm.
mean, like 20% of, I think on the analytics, they're in India,
Mhm.
like,
Wow.
which is wild. Like I'm like,
Yeah.
these obviously aren't people who are like, in the market to buy and ship a painting to India.
Mhm.
Um, so this is a whole audience. I have to know my audience, and
Yeah.
what I've found is that this isn't leading to sales or anything. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm sure
Yeah.
there's some people on there who would be interested in original,
Yeah.
but no, it's
Wow.
been
Yeah.
a different audience.
Shout out to my brothers and sisters in India. We were looking at the analytics on our channel, and because we're looking at using some tools to dub the videos in different languages, and
Mm.
second to English was Hindi,
Yep,
and it's a massive audience.
it
They they
is.
they love their painting over there, man.
I think on Instagram as a whole,
Hmm.
they have the largest pool
Wow.
of Instagram users
Hmm.
is India. I think they beat the US, and they have
Wow.
for many years. So they just have a massive population in general. And
Mhm.
so that spills over into, just everything kind of gets part of that pie.
Mhm. It's interesting though that you've been able to identify this. I've made this mistake early on in my career. I'm starting to find that there is a crossover, but when we're kind of doing our business stuff and here and talking internally as a team, I draw the business on the whiteboard as a Venn diagram of two intersecting circles. I say, right, you've got your original art over here. You've got your art business online over here, which comprises of teaching. The two circles intersect for sure. There's 20 people in that intersection,
Yeah.
for hundreds over here that are buying original art and tens of thousands over here that are consuming the online material.
Mhm.
That cross section is like they're a student and they want a painting. And so
Yep.
that told us something immediately. It's like, dude, they don't want to buy your work. They want to learn how to do this. So
Exactly.
don't try and sell them
Exactly.
a print. So you
Yep.
really, as artists working today, it's almost like we have to be very clear about setting up two separate businesses. You've got your online persona where you're doing your online thing, whether that's teaching or something else, and then you've got your original art thing over there.
Hmm.
And so
Hmm.
we're in the
Yeah.
process now of separating because for too long, my website personally has just looked like I'm schizophrenic. I've got so many different personalities and hats I'm trying to wear that it just doesn't work. And
Dude,
I,
it's a
I,
struggle
I,
for everybody.
I can't believe it's taken me so long, slow learner, to look at this and separate those two. But now that we're doing the course on the academy
Mhm.
on art business, I'm going to be showing members exactly how I build a brand new website, following all those tried and true principles to actually get a great art website. And then separately,
Mhm.
we'll do the teaching website. But
Yeah.
it's you're so right, and people can get this false sense of security almost when they look at a number and they go, you know, I've got this huge following. This is awesome. This means I'm going to make it as an artist, but it's quality. It's the
Yeah.
type of person you've got on that list. Have you
Yes.
have you marketed this? Have you been exposed to the right kind of person that's going to
Hmm.
actually
Hmm.
part with money and buy a painting? You know?
Right, right. And I'm still in the process of realigning my priorities to the audience that I've gained.
Mm.
Um, because I mean, in the online space, my whole life, I've been, I opened up a blog spot when I was like 14. So I could like, it was my cheap way of having a website that I could post pictures to.
Mhm.
Um, but um, I've been doing the online thing for a while, but it's always been, hey, I'm trying to post my work and get buyers for my work.
Mhm.
Um, and now that I have an audience where that's not their priority, I've had to kind of realign my priorities and be like, okay, for now, I'm keeping my original sales. Like the focus is for, my in-person gallery. I'm
Mhm.
also actually now starting to work with a gallery up in Jackson Hole. And
Nice.
so
Well,
and
shout him
so
out. Who is
there's
that?
I'm gonna keep it a secret for now because
Oh, okay, fair enough.
I'm not actually in there yet. We're working things out.
Yeah, tell me off
But
air.
that's
That's
literally
cool.
been in the last month
That's so
that
cool,
that's
man. That's
opened up.
very
Yeah.
exciting. Very exciting.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, I can keep the original sales thing off to the side, and make that more gallery focused, more, foot traffic, people walking in the gallery, all that stuff, keep that there. And then my online presence, I want to focus on creating a digital course, creating content for YouTube, all that kind of stuff that is more on the education side of things. So for me, that's the split. And I'm not going to try and sell my paintings to people who are there to learn art,
Mhm.
learn how to make art. And
Mhm.
so that's been critical.
Awesome. No, it's excellent. It's excellent. So then going forward, this social media is going to continue to be quite an important thing. I can imagine. So let me ask you this. There's so much happening right now in this space. I mean, how do you feel? I ask every artist this, and I apologize. I apologize to the people that are listening to the podcast. Like again, yeah, again, I gotta ask this. I'm scrolling, I'm looking at the Instagram thing, and I'm seeing so much now. Like you really have to dig through hashtags and comments to just see, is what I'm looking at a genuine piece of art, or is this generated by a robot?
Hmm.
What's going on, Andrew?
Dude.
How do you feel about this turn of events? I didn't see it quite happening this quickly. I'm gonna admit it caught me a little bit by surprise, but now that I look at it,
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh man, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this space now.
Yeah, yeah, it's wild, man. There are certain things that are happening that I think are scary, and some
Mhm.
things that are kind of hopeful. I think that the scary side of things is clearly that we're getting a lot of images generated that aren't even made by humans. I get annoyed because I'm in a lot of Facebook groups and stuff where people are posting, like Wyoming photography groups. Okay,
Mhm.
people are starting to post stuff in there that they're like, oh, the Bighorn Mountains in Wyoming, and they'll post this photo in quotes, and it's straight AI, like that location does not exist, and they're
Wow.
posting it as if it's a photo that they took,
Oh
and so
wow.
people will start commenting, be like, I've hiked in these mountains for years. I've never seen this view. And of course, no one responds back.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so to me, that's that's scary. That's not okay. But here's what I find is the good news is that I honestly think everybody's kind of in that boat of being annoyed. I think
Mm,
there's a whole like a massive group of people who are pretty not okay with that kind of stuff getting pawned off as original artwork or as a real photo or anything like that. I think people are getting the picture. One of the reasons I think that's the case is because on Instagram now there is a tag that's being put on photos that in the metadata for artificially generated photo or even a artificially expanded photo, like you could do the expanded fill on a
mm,
Photoshop. They're in the metadata. Adobe has started to put some of that stuff in the metadata, so that
right. Yeah.
Instagram knows if that photo gets posted and that tag is on it, they'll actually put a little asterisk on the top of the post. And I've seen quite a bit of it now that's just like made with AI.
Mm,
And so there is certain things it needs to get improved
mhm,
because there is some things that are there are some things that kind of get falsely tagged as made with
mm,
AI. So
mhm,
it's not a foolproof system. But the fact that people are kind of waking up to the need for like hey, yeah, we need to have some accountability for what's being put out there, that
mm,
we want to value human creation. Like
mm.
that's what we really want to value and um, admire and share and participate with, not this, cheap stuff that people are faking it. That's not what we want.
It's just, but it's not just that people are faking it. I think, I mean, that is a concern for sure. But I mean, it's that it's so anti-human. To create art, to produce art is such a fundamental human thing. To express your creativity, to take this thing that's within you, to draw it out, and to literally that connection between the hand, the brain, and the heart, to express oneself. Now, it's not to say you can't use tools. There are some people defending this as if this is a tool, but I don't think it is. I think it crosses a line that it is no longer a tool. Like where they'd say, well, what's the difference between that and digital painting? You still have to make the friggin' painting, dude. Like this
It's
is
so different.
it is so different. I don't know, man. Like I feel that what it's going to do, I mean, it could have its positives, but what it's going to do is it's going to make us, yearn for that human touch again. But
Hmm.
what where it will get scary is how this impacts where money is being spent. Like certainly, like let's say in the public art space, or where economics comes into this. If you can bid cheaper for a project, or you know somehow get through that process where they're looking at these two options, one's generated by a robot for nothing and the other one's generated by an
Hmm.
artist that is going to cost them tens of thousands of dollars. I can see institutions, companies, governments going, well, we'll go with that option and look how much we just
Hmm.
saved on the budget. I think it is going to cost opportunities,
Yeah.
but I think ultimately there will be a widespread reaction to this after people get over the novelty. I'm not sure when that will
Hmm.
happen, but
Hmm.
yeah, I
I
just
think the pendulum's gonna. I think it is gonna swing the other way
yeah.
because right now, like the market's not the market, but like people's feeds are getting pretty saturated with this kind of nonsense.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I think people are gonna eventually get fed up with it. Um,
Mm,
because like you said, there is no emotional or even spiritual connection to a work that's made by a computer, that's made by AI. There's no denying that it looks like a painting or it looks
mhm,
like a photo,
mhm,
um, but there is, like you were saying earlier, and I agree wholeheartedly that there is something so inherently human about creating art.
mm,
And it's my belief that it's because we are made by an artist, that we're like humans are made by God, and that there is something so baked into us that there's an artist that made us as art to make more art. And so there's something there's a spiritual aspect to this too. I think that it's a little bit scary when you start thinking about it too much. There's this kind of push to say that we don't even need human artists anymore. Like
Hmm.
that's kind of a thing of the past, and I'm like, that's to be human. Like
Hmm.
how could you think that? And so I think there's certainly going to be a whole swath of people whose main concern is money, and this is going to be more beneficial for them to
Hmm.
go with an AI thing. And I don't want them to buy my paintings anyway. So, um, like
You're
that's
not my
fine.
audience. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, you're not
yeah.
my audience. So the people who I know and the people who I respect and I want them to
Hmm.
have my work, like they're the ones that are going to find it, right?
I appreciate what you just said. I would love to ask you, like, so where do you find uh, interesting this intersection between your faith and your art?
Mm,
Being someone of faith myself, I look at God in exactly the same way as a creator, as the master artist,
mm,
and the paintbrush that he has is incredible.
yeah,
And so I'm
yeah,
constantly going, hey, what did you do there?
yeah. Oh yeah.
But how do you find, has this been something that you feel you explore within your paintings? How do you find that intersection between faith and art?
Mm, that's a great question. I don't think I do it like a lot of people have in the past, where you have kind of the religious section on your website, which is
Right.
like,
Yeah.
paintings of Jesus with the
Hmm.
children, or,
Hmm.
there's a whole other separate thing. And I don't feel like that's the way I approach God at all, or my art is this separate thing.
Hmm.
I view it as entirely cohesive, is
Hmm.
that um, he is the maker of all things, me
Hmm.
included. And so for me to make any art is just to imitate him. I'm not, uh, and in the scope of what he makes and what I make, it is like me handing him a crayon drawing and just being like, "Look at what I made."
Yeah.
And I spent a year and a half, and he's like, "Dude, that's cute, buddy." Um,
Can you imagine
yeah, like,
how full the front door of God's fridge is?
yeah. Oh, dude. He's like, "Oh, my lands, I don't have space for this one, bro." He has got an infinite fridge, I'm sure.
He does. He's got an infinite fridge.
So I'm glad he is pleased with that, and he's not, he it's so fun to get to do this for a living, because it
Yeah.
feels like part of my faith gets to be just embedded in my life every moment,
Mhm.
where and I sometimes forget about it, to be honest with you. Sometimes I get so caught up in business stuff and in the process of creating, that I forget that
Mm.
I'm really doing something that imitates the divine, that imitates the
Mm.
sovereign God of the universe. And so to me, just to go off on a quick little moment here, like
Mm.
that
Let's do it.
that in itself, making art is in a way, it's worship. It is a way for me of worshiping God, because it's saying that I'm going to actually put all my life, all my blood, sweat, and tears into devoting myself to the attention of something you made.
Yes.
That's why I'm not. Um, I when it gets into abstract art, there's actually something I find that it's a different reason I can appreciate some abstract art. But for me, um, realism and representationalism is what I want to do,
Hmm.
um, and it's to me that devotion to something that is so much bigger than me, so much like I'll never wrap my mind around color theory. Like I'll never get it the way that God made it, but
Hmm.
I could spend my entire life trying to figure it out.
Hmm.
And to me, that is a life of worship that is so meaningful and powerful beyond me. Like it doesn't mean that like I could let all the money, like I don't need to make anything, like I kill the business, whatever. Like that act of itself of being a noticer and being like to take notes and to identify how God did this thing, like how everything is made, like how three-dimensional form is represented with light and with texture and
Wow.
patterns and everything. Like to me, that act of noticing is like,
Hmm.
to me, that's 75% of being an artist, is being a noticer, is
Amazing.
someone who is not all wrapped up in themselves and not trying to get what's in their own head out. um, for me, being an artist is about looking outside of yourself and finding what out there is bigger than you, like and and for me, that's like, that's the almighty God. Like that's who I want to see, and that's who I want to discover when I look at all the things he's made. And I
Hmm.
do, and I find that incredible connection, with God in just noticing and
Hmm.
then imitating him and creating.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. One thing, because there will be some people that are listening to this that will probably have different views to us, and that's fine.
Yeah,
That's cool.
yeah.
That's totally cool. But the one thing I find is that just that act of noticing and just geeking out while you're observing something and trying to recreate that. I think the creation part is this act of gratitude. It's this
Hmm.
act of saying thank you. It's
Hmm.
like, hey, I'm noticing this thing. I want to represent that. And
Hmm.
representational
Hmm.
painting is what we're doing, right?
Yeah.
And just doing that is like going, hey, this is cool. Let's celebrate it. And that's one thing I
Yeah.
really enjoy about being an artist personally. Um, and I have a little prayer that I say when I roll out of bed. And I know we're not to do repetitious prayers, but it's again like I learned this from a brother of mine, a brother from another mother. His name's Steve, and he's just like, "This is a day you have made. I will rejoice and be glad in it." And so
Hmm.
if that's an opportunity to create another piece of
Hmm.
artwork, then man, I couldn't think of anything better.
Hmm.
It's awesome.
Yeah. I don't even have anything to add to that. I totally agree.
Well, I would love to hear, this is interesting, this place that we're, you're giving us this view looking in to your world here, Andrew, and this space that you're in right now. I'd love to hear, like, what's next for you? What are these visions and aspirations that you have for your business? What are the next moves that we
Hmm.
can see you make here? And how are you going to ride this wave that has just been forming behind you, underneath you?
Hmm.
It's just I don't forgive me, and I don't mean to sound like I'm patronizing at all, but it feels like you're on this epic wave and you've just hopped up on your surfboard and you've been building this whole time, paddling,
Hmm.
working, grinding,
Yeah.
grinding, grinding, and now it feels like it's here. I don't know, dude. Like I feel like this blow up isn't over. It's just beginning.
Oh man, uh I love that. It does feel like that. I think you described it well. I think that, I'll be honest with you, I am still figuring it out. I will tell you, that I don't have it all figured out. I don't quite know exactly where I'm going or what I'm doing. But I love being on that adventure. So I'll throw out some things that I'm working on, kind of some different trajectories, and maybe this will even, you know, bring up some ideas for other people, opportunities for making a living at this. So, um, I'm I think, like I mentioned before, I am going back to kind of pursuing a relationship with an art gallery in Jackson Hole, being as I'm, um, only about 3 hours south of Jackson Hole. I'm like, you know what, let's just do this. And so I've actually, for the first time, finally had a little bit of an open door there. So, I am pursuing that. I'm also really investing a lot of time into building my craft, when it comes to the video production. And
Excellent.
I this is the other thing. All my reels are scripted. I take a lot of time to write like detailed scripts for all of them. And so what I'm in the process of doing right now is scripting videos for YouTube and scripting videos for an online painting course, like a paid course. So,
Mhm.
because I recognize that that's the audience that I've attracted, is those people who would be in for that kind of content and be willing to pay for it. And so that's kind of the road I'm pursuing next. And I'm also, that means for me building actually like a whole new set of skills, which is, I'm getting into filmography and color grading and animations and After Effects and being able to, motion tracking and things that make video, kind of immersive.
Mm.
And so I'm learning all those things right now.
Amazing.
And so, what's cool is that in the process of doing that, I have to do paintings to demonstrate things. And so I end up with the byproduct being more work getting done. More paintings get produced. And so that's really what I'm investing in a lot right now is that side of things. I'm also, I'm not going to say who right now, but I think I'm going to like start getting sponsored by a paint manufacturing brand, which
Very
is
cool.
pretty cool. Very like the painting brand, like the paint brand that I've been using for the past 10 years. Like they reached out to me and I'm like, yo, let's do this. So very excited
Awesome.
about that. It does
Awesome.
mean that there's oh man, dude, there's a little bit of tension there though. I'll be honest with you that I'm like, oh, I love that everything I've been producing on social media has been just giving people things and
Mhm.
expecting nothing in return.
Mhm.
And I'm dude, you can pray for me because it's going to be walking into this new realm of like I am going to have to be placing some ads. I am going to have to be like giving some, some brand names out there and really
Mhm.
I'm trying to sell stuff for people now.
Mhm.
Um, so I don't quite know how that's going to work out, to be honest with you. I haven't done any of that kind of stuff before.
Well,
And
I think it's a balance. I really think it's a balance. If you are focused on service and you're focused on giving, and there's a place where people can get value for nothing. Take this podcast for instance. No one's
Mhm.
paying for it. No one's paying
Yeah.
for it, but Rosemary and Co. have very kindly agreed to sponsor the show now. And so they've jumped on board and have been so generous, and they want to see the show continue.
Mhm.
And and it's wonderful to have their support. I would be doing it because it's just been a passion project of mine. But I think as long as you get that balance, if you're focused on service and giving, it's okay to give that 90% and then ask for that remaining 10.
Yeah.
And the right people will show up and support you. If other
Right.
people don't want to do that, that's fine. There's always going to be
Mhm.
the free stuff out there. And I this is one thing that I found, like, I got pretty harsh critique from a few people going, this is stupid. What you're doing is stupid. You're giving away so much stuff for free. You could charge for this." I'm like, "Yeah, and I probably will in an extended version, but most
Mhm.
of what I give away 95% of what I got.
Yep.
I just give it away. But
Mhm.
where I think the benefit of having something like the Academy is that I'm looking for those people who want to go that extra mile and really
Mhm.
drill into these things. So it's like
Yeah.
you've just watched a 15-minute version. Most of that information, boom, there you have it.
Mhm.
But now let's really go deep on this
Yeah.
topic in
Yeah.
the extended
Yeah.
version kind of thing. I think when you do that and you're upfront about it, I don't see any problem with it, Andrew. Not at all. In
Uh-huh.
fact, I think that's a sustainable way to build an online business,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah, dude, and I'll be honest with you, so much of what I'm doing right now feels like I'm maybe not like directly following in your footsteps, but I feel like I'm learning so much from you and watching you and
Oh,
being a
wow.
part of what you've been doing. I went back and looked, I realized that I've been watching your YouTube channel since, well, for like the past 7 years.
Oh,
I've been
dude.
subscribed, which is almost as long as you've been making YouTube videos, I
Yeah,
think.
I think it is. I think it is, man. That's
um,
cool. Wow.
and so I've been tracking with this for a long time, and when
Mm,
I saw that you first had your Patreon,
mhm.
I know that I immediately was like, yeah, sign me up, get me in that.
Awesome, man.
Because I was one of those people who felt like I want to push that extra mile. I
Mm.
want to learn, and I want to see what you do, and I want to get what you got, kind of thing. So
Oh, tremendous. I
and
appreciate
so
that.
yeah, so I recommend your academy to anyone, actually kids and adults alike, who I don't know how many of them have actually signed up, but I but I throw your name out there all the time,
Thanks, Andrew.
because I find it so valuable. And so
Yeah,
that to me is the thing that I want to keep pushing
sure.
for, is being like, let me make it worth your while.
Mm,
Like
mm,
let me do, because that's what I feel like you're doing, is saying when people pay for this, they are actually getting something that is like well worth the money, like well
mm.
worth
Right,
the ridiculously low monthly cost for even the top tier, to be honest with you.
right.
um so anyways, I just feel like I want to say that
Thank you, brother.
I'm gathering so much from you,
Mm,
and not just in the learning from you and in the technical side of painting, but also in just how you produce content, how you make your living doing this.
yeah. I'm just, yeah, and again, I've said this, if you don't, I might have said this on the podcast, but I feel like that. You ever heard that saying that a blind hog finds a truffle once in a while? You know,
Yeah.
but
It's a little different in the States, but it's similar.
oh, okay,
It's the
cool.
blind squirrel finds an acorn.
Blind
There you
squirrel
go.
finds an acorn. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess, yeah, I'm probably getting that saying wrong because hogs don't use their sight to find truffles. They just sniff it along. But anyway, I just I feel like that I've just stumbled upon something. And I was just like, well, this is working, so I'll keep doing it, kind of thing.
Oh man.
But I enjoy it. I do enjoy it. But it's yeah, it's been a really rewarding journey. I really want to give people that hope, not just hope, but that knowing, that certainty
Hmm.
that this presents an amazing opportunity to do something incredible with your life, with your
Hmm.
career, to follow that passion. Um, there are things that you can do right now online that absolutely will not work, but there are things that you can do that will work. And I I think the one thing that I've had going for me, because I know I'm not the most talented painter out there. I know that. Like I just jump onto Instagram and I know that I can't draw like Fedorov. Okay. But I look at that dude's
We
charcoal
all know
drawings
that.
and I'm like, come on, dude.
We all feel that.
And it's like there's so many artists out there. Like I can't play an air like Joe Paquette, but I go, well, but the one thing I can do is I could just show up and I could just keep showing up and just not quit. Just
Hmm.
keep going, keep going, keep going. And do that without getting worn out. That was the other thing
Hmm.
as well. Without getting worn out, without getting burnt out. When I'm getting burnt out, I'm like, okay, feeling burned out.
Hmm.
I got the wrong focus here.
Yep.
I'm not looking in the right place.
Hmm.
I'm stuck in a position here where I'm trying to get something. That's why I'm feeling burned out. How come I'm
Yeah.
not in give right now? I need to be in give. And so yeah, it's been a really interesting ride, but I'm spun out that you've been following for that long because you've seen all of these transitions. We're about to go into another massive growth and change phase within what we do.
Oh,
Um,
so excited.
and it's now the next step, which I could it's like jumping from one lily pad to another. The next lily
Hmm.
pad has appeared. It's a little far away,
Hmm.
but I'm just going. I'm gearing up. My little frog legs here. I'm about to jump
Oh,
over to that other one.
yeah.
But
It's cool to
it's
see you back in this studio space, to be honest with you. I dig it.
yeah,
Like when
yeah,
you
me too.
left, I was a little heartbroken, to be honest with you. And I'm not even there. Like I was just like, oh dude, that was the perfect little studio. But then
It's great. It is
I
great.
love that you're
Yeah.
back.
Yeah, it's been man. I mean, it's because I setting up the gallery all over again, renovations all over again. I think collectively between the first time and the second time, I've easily blown. I'm not even going to give the figure on the podcast. I'll tell you off air, but so much money has gone into this space. But
Oh man, I believe it.
it's cool. It's cool to have this back again. And I still got to
Hmm.
overcome some of the challenges with the building, but it is a multifunctional space and we can
Yeah.
do all sorts in
Yeah.
here. I'm really excited
Yeah.
about my buddy Mike Norris, who's coming back to the studio to share the studio with me. He's a renowned New
Mm.
Zealand sculptor and he's going to be on that side over there uh, across from me. So I've worked with
Be
Mike in the
awesome.
past for a couple of years and it's good to have him coming back. He'll be here next week. So yeah,
Nice.
it's all happening,
That's
man. But
exciting. That's cool. I see you. I see you're still wearing a jacket indoors though. So it's a
Yes,
little chilly there.
I'm freezing, dude. Dude, I
I
am
could
freezing.
tell.
But I just keep telling myself, okay, summer's just around the corner. I'm building
Yep.
character right now.
That's awesome. Dude, I forget that you're like halfway around the world and
Yeah.
it's the heat of summer here right now.
Yeah, it's spun out. Yeah. No, we are way down in the southern hemisphere
Yeah.
yeah, South Island in New Zealand. It gets cold, but it doesn't get Canada cold because when I
Mm,
mention like how cold it is here, it's like -4 outside. They're like, try -20. I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not. I ain't about to do
yeah.
that.
Yep. That sounds like Wyoming too. It's
Yeah.
rough.
Oh, it's a beautiful landscape though. Andrew, I'm so excited about what the future holds for you, brother, and
Oh, thank
and
you.
the work and your gallery and the space that you're in. Is there anything else you'd like to share with the people that are listening about some things to keep an eye out and what's coming next for Andrew? Just
Mm,
keep
mm.
their eyes peeled on your Instagram.
Yeah, Instagram is where I'm the most active right now.
Mhm.
I'm posting stories all the time if I'm not posting actual posts. I try to keep that, updated on projects I'm working on, things like that. So I'm, that's where I'm the most active. That's where you can find me, DM me there all the time. Here's the thing though, is I do have like all notifications turned off completely. So
Smart.
it may take me a while
Yeah.
if you message me.
You got to do
But
it, man. You got to do that.
I love chatting with people though. So every once in a while I get on there and I'm able to, connect, and I love that. So yeah, keep an eye out for that. I'm serious. Like I'm working on YouTube channel, working on a digital course. So keep an eye out for that. Yeah, if you're in Rock Springs, you got to come visit me. I literally just like doors are open Tuesday to Saturday. Like come on in and say hey.
Awesome. Oh, well, if I find myself in Rock Springs, you bet, man.
If you do,
But
you're probably lost.
but yeah, to the people listening, go hit up Andrew Kneeland in Wyoming. Oh, what a wonderful conversation. Andrew, thank you so much for being on the Creative Endeavor.
Happy to be here, man. This was a privilege.
Well, I really hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Creative Endeavor podcast, and a huge thank you to Andrew Kneeland for joining me. Right now, if you're not already following Andrew on Instagram, change that quick. He can be found at the Andrew Kneeland. That is spelled TheAndrew, Kneeland, knee as in knee, Kneeeland. And on his website, kneelandfineart.com. Check out his beautiful work there and follow his journey. He's definitely one to watch. I think he's going to keep going from strength to strength, and he's going to continue to blow up. I can't wait to see what he comes up with next. Well, I really hope that you've enjoyed the episode, and if you did, then please leave me a rating or a review on whatever audio platform you're listening on. It makes a huge difference to the show. And if you ever want to check out the full video version of these podcasts, they can all be found on Tish Academy. Simply visit tish.academy. Well, thank you so much for joining me here. I've really enjoyed your company. I hope you got something out of this episode, and I can't wait to bring you another installment of the Creative Endeavor.